You're listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 394.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're all doing well. I am recording this episode and then getting ready to pack. We're headed out of town for a family wedding this weekend, so very excited about that. Trying to decide the clothes and shoes to pack because we're going to an area of the country that hasn't quite probably seen a ton of spring yet, but regardless, I'll be prepared and looking forward to having a good time with family to celebrate a wedding, which is always great. Lots of things going on over the weekend to enjoy together, and I'm really looking forward to it. Plus, I love car trips. I think it's great to hop in the car. We'll be driving about 4 hours. Oh, and then when we get there, we'll be just in time to watch UK play basketball in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. We're not seated as highly as we usually are, but nonetheless, always look forward to the NCAA basketball tournament. And today there's actually some games on too, so I might have to tune in as I'm packing and watch basketball today also. Some people that like basketball think these are the greatest 2 days in sports, this first 2 days of the NCAA tournament. So a lot of people take off work, go somewhere, watch basketball all day. I know I have a friend who goes with some friends, takes his older sons to Las Vegas for these 2 days, and they sit and watch basketball all day. So a lot of things going on this time of year, obviously, for March Madness around basketball. Okay, so I'm veering away from the podcast, but I'm going to get us back here because I want to talk about something today. When we come up with a cookbook idea, we often think it's not the book we're supposed to write. Like we shouldn't write it. Like something in our head is telling us this is not the book you should write. But my proposition today is, what if it is the book you should write? And the reason a lot of people come up with an idea, but they think they should not write that book, is because it doesn't match their profession. But what if that's exactly why you should write the book? This is very common and something I hear a lot, especially from health and food experts, chefs, dietitians. I've worked with other health professionals, people who have spent years building real expertise, and in their professional life, they're known for something. But then when it comes to writing a cookbook, they hesitate because they really want to write what they love in the kitchen. And it doesn't always match their credentials. Maybe they think it should sound more technical. It should sound more nutrition-y. It should sound more like a textbook. Maybe it should be more serious. Maybe if I'm a doctor and I want to write about barbecue, people won't get that. They think that they have to write books that are aligned with who they are as a profession. And this creates a lot of second guessing, a ton of hesitation. And what I find often happens is the really strong idea that we want to write about gets put to the side. And I care about this topic deeply because I lived this myself with my first book. I was trained as a dietitian, and not only that, but I went on to get advanced training in nutrition support. I had a strong background in nutrition support therapy. I was certified in nutrition support therapy. I wanted to go to chef school, which I did. I wanted to learn about food, which I did. But my book that I wanted to write had nothing to really do with any of that. It had to do with seasonal home cooking in Kentucky. That's right. Family meals, menus, stocking your pantry. It's kind of these home-ec-y things, but the way that people actually cook and gather and eat. It's what I cared about deeply, and it's what I wanted to write about. But in the back of my mind, I kept wondering, am I like betraying my profession? Am I stepping away from who I paid to be by going to college? Because there wasn't anything clinical, nutrition related in this book. And I wasn't writing for professional chefs. I was writing about my life right here in my Kentucky kitchen. And two things came up for me. I felt like I was indulging in something that I really loved. Was I allowed to write about that? And I felt like I was betraying my training. But what I came to understand and what I want to talk to you about today and how I see this with so many people I work with is you are not betraying your training. You are not being indulgent. You're expanding it. You're expanding your training. Everything you learned doesn't disappear just because everything you learn doesn't disappear just because you show up differently and write about different things. What you know and what you learn can show up in how you talk about ingredients, how you talk about food, how you guide your reader. And in many ways, I think having that expertise in the background does make the book better. I've had doctors, like I mentioned, want to write up about barbecue. Worked with a pharmacist who wanted to write about plant-based comfort food. Ayurvedic practitioners who just wanted to talk about spices, rice, lentils. And underneath all of this hesitation is pretty much the same question. Am I allowed to do this? Because there's pressure for experts. They're supposed to write something serious, something technical. Get an abstract published. Go speak at your professional organization. That's what people think they should be doing. Because there's fear of being judged by our peers, fear of stepping outside of how we're known, fear of not being taken seriously. And then what ends up happening because of this is they confuse their credentials with the right book idea. But I want you to remember this. Publishers for trade cookbooks are not they're not universities. Now, sometimes university presses publish trade cookbooks, and they did my first cookbook, but they're not looking for a trade cookbook. They're not looking for a professional cookbook from me, even if you publish for a university press. They're not licensing boards. They're businesses. And they're looking for books that people are going to buy. So when the publisher looks at a cookbook idea, they may not only be asking, well, is this person qualified to write it? But more importantly, are there readers who are going to care about this? And this ties into what we talked about last week because readers don't choose a book or a cookbook based on credentials alone. They choose books that they need or feel pulled toward based on maybe they recognize who you are, they know who you are, maybe on curiosity, maybe on emotion, maybe on connection. Your credentials could help build trust, especially if it's a book about a health condition, but they don't automatically create reader interest. And publishers sometimes want both. They might want someone with credentials and a passion for the topic that they're writing about, but sometimes that doesn't really matter to them either. One way to understand this a little more clearly is to look at how cookbook deals actually tend to happen. And I think they fall into one of three lanes. Cookbooks based on authority, cookbooks based on personality, or cookbooks based on platform. So let's talk about all three of these. Cookbooks based on authority is where credentials matter the most. This is if you have a dietitian writing heart-healthy cookbooks, doctors writing about specific conditions, expert-led, information-driven, recipe-containing books. Your credentials will probably matter the most in a book like this. A personality-driven book is where the story and the voice lead. Chefs, food writers, people writing from lived experiences build and write books about culture, identity, and perspective. And quite frankly, it's often the hardest for people who have credentials to turn their work into personality-driven books. I think it's great to do, but often the people who are the experts feel the most out of alignment when they try to do something like this. And if you're listening to this podcast and you have credentials in the health space, but yet you're wanting to write a book about culture, identity, perspective, story-led, voice-led books, remember, if you're feeling some dissonance, it's not because you've picked the wrong topic. It's just because your book and what's going to lead is your personality and not your credentials. And then the third type of book is a platform-driven book where the audience is the leverage. If you're a blogger and you have a lot of followers on your food blog, you're some sort of creator, you already have a community of people engaging with your recipes, your platform is going to drive this book. And you're going to be writing a book based on what they like and respond to. The strongest books actually usually come from a combination of these two, like authority plus personality, or personality plus platform, or authority plus platform. The combination, I think, is when things really start to work. So let's get back to what you love and what you love to cook and what you love to talk about, because this is the part that people most often overlook. When someone talks about an idea they genuinely care about, I can always hear it in their voice. When we are talking about it on coaching calls, their voice changes and their energy changes and their story becomes more clear, more specific, more alive. And that's because there's more emotion behind it. And I promise that's the kind of topic you probably want to write your first book about, because readers can feel that. They will respond to the energy that you are providing to write this book and not just the information that's in the book. In addition to that, your energy and your love for the topic will help you be a better person marketing and selling this book. Remember that people love stories and they love to connect with real people with real lived experience, and that is what's going to make your book stand out. So I'm not saying that credentials don't matter. They might matter. They do help build trust. They could give your reader confidence in your guidance. They could support your authority, but credentials do not carry the entire book. They enhance the message, but they do not replace the personal connection that you bring with your topic and with your readers. So again, I think the strongest cookbooks often bring two together: authority plus humanity. Authority might explain why you're qualified, but humanity explains why anyone should care about the topic that you want to write about. And when those two things come together, you have a powerful idea for a cookbook. So if you've been holding back on an idea because you don't think it's serious enough, I want to offer you a different way to think about it. You're allowed to write about what excites you. Your profession that trained you does not limit you. You're not stepping away from your expertise. You're not betraying your college education. You're not betraying any money that you or your parents or somebody spent on you to get your certificate or your degree. You're expressing what you love in a more human way. And the idea that keeps coming up for you, that you can't quite let go of, that you're not sure you should write about, the reason it's coming up over and over again is because it matters. And the truth is, your credentials got you to where that you are today. They matter, but they're not what's going to always carry your book forward. Let's look at the connection and starting with something you actually care about. So that idea you're pushing aside could be the exact one that is the concept for the book you need to write and might exactly be what your readers are waiting for. So if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own and getting it published, please head to the show notes, join our wait list for the next cohort of Get Paid to Get Published. And the URL is cookbookwritersacademy.com/getpaidmasterclass. I will let you know the next time the class opens up and the next time we open the doors for the cohort of Get Paid to Get Published. And I'd love to have you on the wait list. So that is it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.